start it. Start this presentation out with discussion. So if we could have kind of in your little table groups, talk about for about 5 minutes these 4 questions, and then we'll kind of come back and see what y'all talked about. Alrighty. I heard murmurs from different groups, some good conversations. Let you kind of wrap up a little bit. So to kind of start with the first question that we had up here, what topics related to East Asia have you taught in your classrooms? Some, if none, like I know y'all teachers have a lot on your plate, so emphasis that there are no wrong answers here. Yeah, does anyone want to kind of go first with that first question? Yeah.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
No, you're good. We love.
Because I do gifted ed, I kind of do stuff all over the place, but I do both Monument and Future City, and both of those allow us to do things kind of outside the box, so to speak. And so last year, one of my Future City teams was in Taipei, which was the city that they chose. And when we made it to nationals, and when we were in DC, we visited with it's like Taipei Culture and Economic Center or whatever. Yeah, which is basically like an embassy. So we got to visit with folks from them. They came and saw our model and we did a little cultural exchange. It was pretty cool.
Oh, I love.
Yeah, and we definitely we always call people and ask them to come talk to us. So we had people who'd grown up in Taipei come talk to us about what the city was like, and we had Megan Green come talk to us about the history and all that.
Yeah, awesome. And then like along with this first question, like are there any areas of content you feel are like well suited to incorporate East Asian content? When I was in high school, like in rural Kansas, only closest we ever got to East Asia was Japan during World War II. I see some heads nodding. Yeah, is there any other areas that you feel are kind of good for y'all to insert those? So it's okay if not. Yeah. Love. That's me.
And so one of the teachers that another area specifically with science is that so there's on the community action organization is that kind of incorporate, according to what subject, you can do it all different areas, and that's what they did for science.
Oh, I love that. Kimchi is now a staple in my house, and K-pop, I was in the K-pop dance club, so I would have loved to do that. And then kind of challenges that are in teaching East Asia. So like example, like timing, content, student interest. I know kind of like Kingman is where I grew up, so it's near Wichita, and in that, teaching about East Asia was mainly in the last few weeks of school. The school year, so like it was usually never covered. Are there any other kind of challenges that go along with like teaching that you faced or you can think of?
Yeah, I know that at least in certain subjects or in certain grade levels, we really focus on certain content. So for instance, like 8th grade is very much like American history. And then kind of with that, we try to collaborate with the English department, so it almost becomes like 8th grade becomes American literature as well. So it's kind of hard to find those ways to slip it in to those grade levels.
Yeah, definitely a difficult thing to do. Yeah, and then kind of with those challenges, like what are some supports that would make it easier and like more available to you to like teach more East Asian content in your curriculum and teachings? If you don't have an idea, that's totally cool. That's what I'm here for.
In what culture they are participating, what they see, what they like to watch, what they like to follow, already where they are in knowing the East Asian culture. I think that can be supported, as it was mentioned today. This is the beginning. When we know that we are not pouring out the water.
And y'all already have like a lot on your plate, so I'm glad that y'all are here wanting to internationalize your classrooms. All right, so kind of getting in, I have a few recommendations kind of when teaching East Asia. This can go for any kind of topics that we've talked about today as well. The first one that I want to bring up is style guides. These are created by journalists and used by journalists. So every single association, so community, so like Black Journalists of America, the LGBTQIA+ Journalists of America, I've put the Asian American Journalists Association up here. They have style guides on what terms to use, why to use them, what terms not to use, and why. The Asian American journalists especially have pronunciation guides, so how to pronounce like last names from different cultures and countries. And even though it's used by journalists, like we've talked a lot about today, how like the words that you're using, the terms that you're using are really important. So I really recommend this. Like I used it a lot when I was looking into like QT topics, so queer and trans topics. So like, should I use LGBTQIA+ or LGBTQIA? Like, which one should I use? That's still an ongoing conversation, but this one's really good to use. I had the Global Press Journal as well. They had a style guide that kind of talked about how to articulate more global topics. And then the Open Notebook had just a list of a lot of different links to just different communities and their style guides. So you just ever kind of want to like look up terms or pronunciations, this might be a good place to start. And there are two terms we wanted to keep in mind with this presentation today, especially when teaching East Asia, and then of course, teaching other countries as well. First one is cognitive empathy or empathetic accuracy. So having more complete and accurate knowledge about the contents of another person's mind, including how the person feels. In my terms, just understanding why that person does what they do, why they think what they think, why they feel what they feel. And how we can do this when teaching is teaching history through a pop culture lens. So like say you want to talk about Korea, maybe talking about BTS. If you've ever heard of them, I'm a big fan. So kind of incorporating them, showing the events leading up to or the reasons behind. So like if you ever talk about maybe the Korean War, really explaining like, that they were under Japanese internment for the 35 years before the war even happened. And then especially the one that we want to emphasize the most is showing firsthand experiences from citizens of said country. So maybe when we're talking about the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you maybe show or like tell the firsthand experiences of people who were on the ground. I remember when I was in high school, I would see the video of the bombers from America like being happy and like throwing the bombs down and going, "Wow," when it exploded. But it was much more impactful when I came here to college to read the book Black Rain, which had like lots of different experiences from firsthand people down in Japan. And showing these firsthand experiences can really help students empathize with people of different cultures, and starting to read these things kind of just help them throughout their process of learning, like especially today, like being able to empathize with others. And then how can we show this cognitive empathy when we don't have people in the classroom to do that? Is multimodality. This is the other term. So in official terms, application of multiple literacies within one medium, multiple literacies or modes contribute to an audience's understanding of composition. In my words, just using tons of different materials to get the point across. So of course, in classrooms, we have textbook. You are getting some literature today from us. You can do newspaper articles, whether online or physical, interviews, videos, so on YouTube, or if you're able to, in person. And then of course, we have movies, TV shows, and documentaries. And then the one that I want to emphasize, which I still feel like some college professors don't like, is using social media. This is really important. Your students are on this all day, even if they don't have social media themselves. So really trying to find sources on there, like maybe you find an Instagram profile that has a lot of information that's accurate. I super love TikTok, even though it's banned on state devices. I think it's a really good resource. I know that we can't really recommend it to students sometimes still. And then one that's kind of in the works right now that probably won't be in schools for like a decade or so is VR, or virtual reality. It's very expensive, but it is up and coming, so kind of be aware of it. My little brother's got an Oculus for Christmas, and so when I first tried it, I would put like walking in Seoul VR videos, and so I felt like I was actually there. So like if you know that your students have these types of things, you can bring that country to them and have them see it and hear it in real time. All right, so kind of with those thoughts in our mind, getting into the Minamata Story, which we have given the books today. So a little bit overview of it. It's written by Sean Michael Wilson and illustrated by Akiko. They have worked on several graphic novels together, and Sean has written many of them, as well as Akiko has done a lot of illustrations, so that we know they're really good. This is based on a true story of environmental damage, mismanagement by the industry, and when they tried to cover it up, and just tons of personal tragedy. And it's still, kind of affecting people today, so still very important in today's world. And we kind of reached that multimodality as well, since this is a graphic novel. So not only are they reading words, they're also really enhancing their visual literacy. And it's also giving you, the science graphs that you need, so you don't have to go look for those. For me, I am not a science person, so being able to see how those go into the water, how it's eaten up and get into our table is very impactful. And I don't know if you can see, but Minamata is kind of located right here in Japan, really down on the bottom. And so the synopsis of this book, it follows Tommy, a university student. He is assigned to research the Minamata disease. When he goes and tells his family this, he realizes his mother and grandmother are from Minamata. And so to get more information, his grandmother and him travel to Minamata. And he gathers more information, and then he returns to school and presents his findings to his classmates. His findings, talk all about the cover-up and all that, but also go into the stigma that is around this incident. I feel like maybe here in the US, whenever we hear that there's a big issue that someone's been a part of, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Do you need anything, kind of? But stigma kind of with this and like East Asia, like you don't want to associate yourself a little bit. So it's kind of the difference. And the conclusion of this book kind of encourages young people to be aware and involved in the struggle of global environmental justice and the impact of contamination on public health. But I know that we're kind of all aware of like global warming, climate change, plastic pollution. And so that kind of can be worked into our lesson plan. So our lesson plan, this one that we have, does focus on 7th to 12th grade. So you can do current events, social studies, and science with this. We really want to teach global competence with this one. So students will gain knowledge and understanding and interests, and that drives their own instruction and research. Teachers, you can help demonstrate the connection between local and global issues. So even though Minamata was local within one area, its findings impacted the world, as well as if you use different topics. And so so when students are doing, I'll back up. And then going into students read about the world and think critically about what they have learned. So in this lesson plan, students will first read Minamata. They'll analyze the impact of mercury poisoning in Minamata, and then conduct research on another industrial contamination disaster. So that's where teachers can come in, demonstrate the connection between local and global. So if your students want to pick plastic pollution, we do have a list lower in the lesson plan that is on the website that talks about other examples that the students can choose from. And then after they conduct their research on industrial contamination disasters, the students will present and discuss with their peers. And then they will write about suggestions and how to do better and how to promote this environmental justice. And then they'll also be on the website is the National Institute of Minamata Disease. This has a lot more scientific information, as well as information on Eileen Smith and Eugene Smith's photos. So Minamata, the way that it came out was Eugene Smith, he was a photojournalist, went to Minamata to document what was happening to people, and that went back to his magazine and caught global attention. So there is a movie about it with Johnny Depp, so if you want to go watch it, I recommend. So it has those there as well. And then we've also given the Ministry of Environment and Government of Japan, they kind of have an archive and timeline as well. And then when I was coming up with this presentation, I was kind of trying to think of like, when students are learning about this or reading this book, like what thoughts, what questions might come to their mind. And one that I thought was really important to discuss or kind of just have teachers be prepared that might come up in students' minds is the fact about labeling diseases. So the Minamata disease was called the Minamata disease because it came from Minamata, Japan, but we all just went through a global pandemic. So just kind of being aware that like, why can't they, so students might think that like, why can't we call COVID-19 the Chinese virus? So just understanding that like in 2020, the World Health Organization did want, because of all of that hatred, they did want diseases to be named by their more scientific terms. And so just kind of being aware that that term was birthed out of hatred and like stigma and ignorance. So that was kind of something that like, be prepared that it might pop up in people's brains. Yeah. All right, and we wanted to recommend a second book. So Moth and Wasp and Soul on the Ocean, it kind of goes along the same type of content. And this is, we have a lesson plan on CEAS's website, I believe, for like 4th to 6th grade. And so it goes over kind of the natural history of insects, the use of biological controls in farming while incorporating Chinese culture. So just really how pesticides work on farming. So if you work with rural Kansas or farm kids, I think this might like hit them pretty hard. And so recommend another one. We tried to find one for Korea, but that one was a bit difficult. So we have China, we have Japan for you. And then a little bit about us. So Center for East Asian Studies, again, we are one of the national resource centers on campus. We are funded by the Department of Education Title VI grant. We were founded in 1959. So our goal is just to increase knowledge of East Asia, the histories, languages, and cultures, and current events. Some of the things that we do, of course, is we have lesson plans, modules that you can use, classroom visits. I would love to visit your classrooms, especially if you want someone to talk on North Korea. I got you. Workshops like this one, we do have events. So we do have our Harvest Moon Festival coming up in September, as well as I talked about Eileen Smith. She will be coming to Lawrence here. We are going to be having a viewing of the Minamata Story movie, and then she will talk about just her time, being a photojournalist, showing those photos. So really cool opportunity if you want to hear it from her. Tuition assistance for students. So we offered free tuition for Uyghur and Tibetan classes, as well as we do have tons of scholarships just to study language here and study abroad. And there's a lot more. And so I would really, really like for all of y'all to contact us. We are in Bailey Hall, 2nd floor, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Contact me whenever. And so here are our website, it's our emails and our phone number. We do post a lot of our events and information on social media. And we do, in your folders, there is a social media card that you can just scan. And yeah, I really hope to hear from y'all. Yeah, any questions?